great day and welcome back to my channel. So if you were to research any mental health disorder, what would you get? Most likely, you would get lists of symptoms and treatments and things like that. Unless you're specifically looking for it, you will very rarely find how these disorders can affect people. So as you could probably tell from the title, today I want to discuss how OCD has affected my life. My life before I began to develop OCD symptoms was very different from my life now. So I'm going to talk about how my life has changed in some ways due to OCD, but I'm not going to discuss everything because I don't just have OCD, I have other mental health disorders too. And so some things that have changed in my life is because of them and not OCD. In this video, I'm going to talk specifically about how OCD has affected my life. Firstly, OCD has affected me physically. Most of the time, OCD is never associated with physical consequences, as it is a mental health disorder. But some compulsions that people do can lead to physical consequences. Due to some of my compulsions, I now have repetitive strain injury in both of my wrists and forearms. This is from repetitive door locking. Now, when most people check to see if their doors are locked, they do a quick little turn. But in my case, every morning and evening, I have an extensive ritual with each door in my house. Not only do I have to repetitively turn the door handle as hard as I can, I also have to pull the door to ensure that it won't open. I don't have to do quite as much during the day, but I do have to check all the doors in my house several times a day. It's hard to keep track of how many times I do it, but the closest I think I've come to counting it was about 60 times in one day for each door, except for the front and back door, because they get used more frequently. That was up at about 150. And I know that I actually did it more times than that. They were just all the times that I remembered to record. So constantly straining these tendons so many times a day has now led to an injury. I find it hard to write, to type, and to even carry things. And of course, I'm always in pain now when I go and check the doors. And that just gives me a reminder that I'm doing this for no logical reason and I'm harming myself because of it. So the next aspect of my life that OCD has affected is physically going to university. Now, before I started developing symptoms of OCD, I was at university. Once the symptoms started, I found it very hard to concentrate in class, and I really had to try and stop myself from getting up and doing compulsions in front of everyone. As my OCD got progressively worse, so did being able to resist the compulsions. As someone who already has social anxiety at this point, standing up in a lecture hall full of 300 people to go and do some compulsion that doesn't make any sense is a nightmare. So, mainly due to my OCD, I had to drop out of university. I am, however, now studying again, but I am doing it all online. This allows me to be able to take breaks whenever I need to go and do a compulsion without the fear of being judged. It was also really difficult to walk around at university. One of my many compulsions is to avoid cracks in pavements or dividers in tiles. So walking around the university doing this weird kind of stride and having people judge me was just making things so much harder. Another thing that I can't do because of OCD is work. I do have contamination OCD, so if I see something that doesn't look right, I can't touch it. So that takes out a lot of options, because who's going to hire someone who stops partway through their work and goes, I can't do what you've asked me to do because I can't touch that because of my OCD. No one wants to hire someone like that. Now, are there options to get around that? Probably, but I also have social anxiety to the extent where I can't talk to anyone I don't know, and that eliminates practically everything. I am still looking into possible job opportunities, but nothing's come up yet. Now, this one kind of relates to university and the fact that I'm studying now. So, due to my obsessive thoughts and my compulsions, I have very low productivity. My compulsions and rituals take time, and when I have obsessive thoughts, I just can't concentrate. And from the constant anxiety these obsessive thoughts are giving me, I'm exhausted. So all I really want to do is lay down and forget about the world. Can I put my low productivity down to just OCD? No, I can be quite lazy, but I also have depression. So some days it's just really hard for me to have the will to get anything done. Thankfully, I do have a very supportive family and they try to help me as best they can. So the next thing that has been affected because of my OCD is getting enough sleep. So as I've mentioned before, my rituals and compulsions take time. So in the morning, it takes me between 1 to 2 hours to do my morning routine, which is kind of like one big ritual. Is it 1 or 2 hours? If I'm in a rush on a good day, I can probably get it down to about 45 minutes to an hour, but that's if I don't do things like wash my face or have breakfast. And in the evenings, I have to spend about the same amount of time getting ready for bed. Again, there's some things I don't have to do, like wash my face, and that helps a little bit in terms of how long this takes me, but it's probably still over an hour. And all the other compulsions I do during the day adds up. So let's take my door locking, for example. So for all the doors except for the two main ones, I had to get up and check the door 60 times. minimum. And to estimate, it probably takes me around 20 to 30 seconds to keep checking the door until the obsessive thought goes away. So in that case, I spend 20 to 30 minutes every day checking just one door. So to put that in perspective, I have 3 doors that aren't considered main doors. So that's an hour to an hour and a half just checking 3 doors. Now, I counted over 160 times where I had to go and check the front and back door. So just to be super rough with my calculations, that would take me between an hour to an hour and a half for one of those main doors. And there's 2 of them. So that's about 2 to 3 hours every day. So those 3 take up the most amount of time in my opinion. So if we add up my morning ritual, my evening ritual, and my door locking, it's gonna take up a significant amount of time. So if I'm having a really, really good day, it could take me 45 minutes in the morning, about an hour to do my evening rituals, 2 hours to check the main doors, and an hour to check the other doors. So on a good day, when I am awake, I spend almost 5 hours doing compulsions. And that's not even all of them. So those 3 things take up almost 5 hours, right? But if I add all of my other compulsions together, that's probably at least another 4. And that also includes the time it takes for me to deal with my obsessive thoughts. So you have 24 hours in a day, and 8 of them are supposed to be spent sleeping. So that gives us what, 16 hours of being awake? I spend about 9 of them with obsessive thoughts and compulsions. I can't do anything in that time. So I get 7 hours a day. That's separated between all of these things that I have to deal with. So being able to get to sleep on time and getting things done is just not something that works together. So mix that with low productivity, and it's really hard to get things done. So another thing I can barely do is leave the property on my own. Now, as I've mentioned in a previous video, I cannot cross a road safely. And there's only a few places that I can go to on my own. And they are the ice rinks that I train at and my friends' places. That's it. Every other time I need to have a family member or a friend with me because it's just too hard to do this on my own. Now again, this isn't just due to my OCD, this is also due to my social anxiety, but OCD does play a major role. I also can't focus on my surroundings because, as I've said before, I can't step on cracks in pavement or between tiles or anything like that. So I always have to be looking at the ground. And because of all of these obsessive thoughts, I tend to forget what I'm supposed to be doing. So I'm not very productive when I go out on my own. Now I have to rely generally on my mum to go anywhere. And that's not fair on her because that's such a huge burden. And I'm almost an adult and I can't go out on my own. It's just not fair to her, it's not fair to my dad, and it's not fair to the rest of my family and friends. And it just makes me feel awful. It's just not fair. This leads on to the last aspect that I'm going to talk about today, which is isolation. So I'm barely able to get things done in a day. I'm exhausted. The last thing I'm going to think about is contacting friends. And sometimes I do want to chat to them, but I'm just so tired and I'm just not up to it. I do try on my better days to contact them, but sometimes I can go weeks without any contact. And I feel really bad because if they send a message, sometimes I can't respond for over a month. And not only that, it's difficult for me to interact in social situations. And with a combination of social anxiety and OCD, I am very aware of people around me, and I'm always thinking they are judging me because of these compulsions that I have to do. And that really, really gets to me, and that makes my overall anxiety worse. So sometimes it's just easier to stay at home. And I'm always really angry at myself when I see all of my friends going out and having fun, and I've decided to stay home because I can't handle it. I mean, I wish I could go out and not have to think about all of these things and just have some fun. But because of the extent of my OCD, I tend to say no and I stay at home a lot. And as my OCD got progressively worse, I was staying home more and more. And that doesn't really help with isolation. So overall, I do have injuries from my OCD. I can't physically go on campus to university, but I can study online with special conditions. I currently can't work at all. I'm definitely not getting enough sleep. And when I'm awake, I can't accomplish very much. And I'm barely able to leave the house on my own, and I feel very, very isolated. This is how OCD affected and still affects me. It's really, really tough. And I think these are the things that people should be more aware of. Yes, you might think you understand because you go, oh, you have these thoughts, so you have to do these compulsions, that's fine. But what about the other effects, the other aspects of life? And also please remember that this is how OCD has affected my life. Everyone is different. So I hope you enjoyed this video and that you learned something or could take something away from it. If you enjoyed it, please leave a thumbs up and subscribe for more content. I post every Monday and Thursday. Alright, thank you so much for watching and I hope to see you soon. Bye!